What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today I wanted to have a deep look at the optic attachments in Black Ops Cold War because there's a lot of misconceptions floating around, a lot of questions about this as well, as to whether or not optics will affect your aim down sight time or your recoil. And also, a lot of people, myself included, were just curious to see what the comparable optics look like side by side to help them decide which one works best for them. So that's what we're going to be doing in today's video. And you know what, let's just get the big questions out of the way first. Do optics affect your recoil in Black Ops Cold War? Based on my testing, and I tested a couple different guns with every single optic available to them, no. There is no noticeable change to your recoil with any of the optics I've tested on any of the guns. Now, to be clear, there is always a little bit of variance with recoil plots, so this doesn't necessarily rule out the possibility that some optics give you like a 3% reduction to your recoil, but as far as I can tell, if there is any difference to recoil with any of the optics, it's a negligible difference. It's not like Modern Warfare where if you use that one particular sight, that 3x sight, that it would actually noticeably reduce your recoil. There's nothing like that I've been able to find. So that's the first big question. Now let's move on to the second one. Do optics affect your aim down sight time? A lot of people have suspected that there's a hidden stat change there where your aim down sight time will change slightly based on the optic, even though it's not stated explicitly in the stats. And once again, I chose several guns from different weapon classes, from SMGs to assault rifles to sniper rifles. And no, I wasn't able to find a single optic that changed your aim down sight time at all. I will say, depending on the zoom level of your optic, it might seem like it's faster or slower, but this is often just due to the perspective, because if you're zooming in a lot farther in the same amount of time, it looks faster than if you were zooming in a smaller amount. So yeah, there's your answers to the two big questions. Optics really are what they appear in the stats. There are no hidden sort of changes that I've been able to find with them to the actual performance of your handling or your weapon. But now I want to get into some side-by-side comparisons with each of the different zoom levels of optics to help you better decide which optic you want. Because even though the zoom level might be the same, the size of the optic or the amount of your peripheral vision that it blocks might be different, or also the viewing window of the optic itself. It might be bigger or smaller depending on the optic that you choose. So let's kick it off with the really low zoom optics, the 1.25 zoom optics. And with this one, we've got the Quickdot LED as well as the Microflex LED. And you can see the difference here side by side. The Quickdot definitely has a more narrow profile, so it doesn't block as much of your peripheral vision. But the viewing window is definitely smaller, and therefore the frame of the optic itself may end up blocking your target, depending on the range and the situation. Whereas Microflex definitely has a bigger viewing window, which could be beneficial depending on your preferences. However, it will block a little bit more of your peripheral vision, especially on the left side of the screen. For me personally, with these ones, it's a pretty close call, but I prefer the Microflex LED. Next up, we have our 1.37 zoom optics. And first up, we have three of them that are available on pretty much all of the guns, and then there's sort of a wild card that's available for SMGs we'll look at in just a little bit. But for the three main ones here, we have the Diamondback, the Millstop, and the Hawksmoor. And you can see they are very, very different in a lot of ways. I really don't like the Diamondback at all. I just feel like it's huge and blocks way too much of your peripheral vision, and it also has a very small viewing window anyway. The Millstop is great because it doesn't block very much peripheral vision, and also the frame around the optic is quite thin, so that's not going to be blocking targets very well. And then finally with the Hawksmoor, we have a totally different viewing window here. We got a rectangular viewing window, which might appeal to some people. It also doesn't block a ton of your peripheral vision, and therefore I could see a really good argument for using the Hawksmoor as well. But I think most people would agree between these three, the Millstop is probably going to be the best for most people. Next up, staying within that same zoom range, 1.37, we have the Fast Point Reflex, which is available on SMGs. It's not as widely available as the other three though, so that's why I'm including it sort of separate here. And I think this one is super ugly. It blocks way too much of your screen, especially on the left-hand side. And I honestly can't see why anybody would want to choose this optic over the Millstop or the Hawksmoor, for instance. After that, at 1.5 times zoom, we only have one optic here, which is the Snap Point, which is again available on SMGs, and it's not really widely available on other guns. And I don't have anything to compare it to in the same zoom range, but I think it's a great looking optic, has a great viewing window, and doesn't block a lot of your peripheral vision, so I actually really like this one. But zooming in a little farther, we have 1.75 zoom, and with this we've got the Cobra Red Dot and the Silix Hollow Scout. Now these ones are hardly even comparable. Yes, they have the exact same zoom level, and that's pretty much where the similarities end. The Cobra Red Dot obviously blocks far less of your peripheral vision. It's much smaller and more compact, but so is the viewing window. You don't have a huge viewing window there, and that might be off-putting for some people. Whereas with the Holo Scout, you can see it blocks a ton of your screen, but that viewing window is massive. So as long as you're keeping your targets within the viewing window, this is great. However, there is always going to be that chance that you're blocking your view from other targets. So this one is definitely going to come down to your preference and your playstyle. I lean a bit more toward the Cobra because of my playstyle and my preference, but I can see why a lot of people would love the Holo Scout as well. Now, let's move on to our 2x optics, and with this we've got the VisionTech 2X as well as the SUSAT Multi-Zoom, which is a 2 to 4. You can toggle this from 2x to 4x, but I still wanted to put them side by side here. You can see that they're nearly identical in their viewing window as well as how much of their peripherals that it blocks. But I would say the versatility of being able to toggle between 2x and 4x is probably a little bit better, and therefore I would lean more toward the multi-zoom if I wanted an optic that zoomed in this far. Next, we've got the Axial Arms 3x optic, and there's nothing to compare this to because this is the only 3x optic that I've seen at least, unless there's like a really secret, unique one that applies to just a small handful of guns. But based on all the ones I've looked into, this is the only 3x optic, and this is what it looks like. Then zooming in a little further, we've got our Royal and Cross 4x optic, which again, nothing really to compare it to, just wanted to show you guys what it looks like. And the same thing applies to our Hangman RF 6x optic. However, this one also has a really cool characteristic to it, and it's a rangefinder optic, and therefore it is constantly measuring the distance between you and your point of aim at any given moment. Now, in practical terms, in 6v6 multiplayer for Cold War, this is pretty much useless. However, assuming this optic is going to be available in Warzone when the integration happens in a couple days, this could be very useful for Warzone, and also you could maybe make an argument that it's useful for combined arms, for instance. But overall, pretty interesting optic if you're looking for that 6x zoom. And with that, let's now look at the thermal optic, which doesn't really have anything to compare it to, but you can see that we've got this thermal optic, and with this one, it completely blocks all of your peripheral vision, but it will make non-cold-blooded players glow. And finally, this just leaves us with a couple more optics that are unique to the sniper rifles, and these are the Vulture Custom Zoom, which allows you to zoom between 1 and 10 times, as well as the Ultra Zoom Custom, which allows you to zoom from 2 times all the way up to 20 times, which is crazy. And the cool thing about these ones that's quite unique compared to previous Call of Duty games is this isn't a toggle. You don't toggle between the highest and lowest setting. You can zoom across all of the zoom ranges between those limits that scope has. So I find that to be pretty interesting with these sniper rifles, and I feel like that could really do well for you for Warzone as well as combined arms. Again, probably not so much in 6v6 multiplayer though. And with that, that's finally going to wrap it up for all of the optics in Black Ops Cold War, as well as what they look like, my opinions on them, and also the fact that they don't affect your recoil and they don't affect your aim down sight time. I'm interested in hearing from you guys in the comment section down below. Which of these optics do you tend to lean toward more? Or are you somebody that doesn't like optics at all, and do you usually just use iron sights? Just let me know those thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.